Just when you thought for a brief moment that Carlton might be a likable character or some type of redemption may be coming to him, the writers go and snatch that away from us. Hello, everyone. Terrence here with Hollywood Already Did It. If you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe, comment, ring that bell below. Anytime we have something, you will be among the first to know. Episode 5 of Bel-Air is out. It's called PA to LA, which is symbolizing the shorthand of Pennsylvania to Los Angeles, which is all about Trey coming out to LA. But it's also underneath about Will and his transition to LA. You would have to think and just sort of just know how the world works and how circumstances work, that anyone going from Pennsylvania to LA or a friend who is still eventually going to have to go back to Pennsylvania and live in that world, there's going to be some friction between the way that they respond to each other and how their lives have kind of taken a fork in the road and gone separate ways. But it's not just Trey and Will who have some issues to go through. We learn that Viv and Will's mom also have some things that they sort of have to work out. So the episode starts with Will getting Trey from the airport and them just kind of catching up, having those moments and bringing things back. And Will then takes, once they get to the mansion, takes Trey and kind of introduces him or reintroduces him to all the family. You got to remember that Trey's been a lifelong family member, so there are parts of the family that he knows. He knows Aunt Viv, he knows Carlton, like they have some interaction. They have known each other before. It doesn't seem like he knew Uncle Phil, so I think whenever they were traveling back to Philly, it seems like Uncle Phil may not have come with them, and just Carlton and Aunt Viv have came. Because we know that just by the law of the way he's responding to LA, Trey has never been here before. But the whole point of all of this is Trey's kind of just thinking that, oh, this is just for a momentary thing, and that Will is coming back to Philly. And he's not alone in that thought. Will's mom has a one-on-one conversation with Aunt Viv. Well, Aunt Viv is kind of like, hey, maybe Will should stay here. Maybe this is the place for him. He's starting to learn friends. He's starting to become a better man. We can put him into politics. We can put him into sports. And mom is like, that's my son. That's my son. Like, he's coming back to Philly. And Aunt Viv basically says, let's give him the choice. And mom don't want to hear none of that. She's like, nah, that's my boy. I still make decisions. He's a kid. I still decide for him what he does. It is clearly a mom who is thinking with her emotions in her heart and not necessarily with her head and thinking about what's best for her kid. But it also shows that Aunt Viv and mom have had some friction before. And this sort of what is going on in this episode with Trey and Will has clearly also happened with Aunt Viv and Will's mom. Like, they've had some of these same sort of interactions and talks about, oh, you're too good now. You don't know where you come from. That whole identity process of coming from like a smaller or urban area and kind of making a better life for yourself often gets frowned upon by people who are still of that life and may not even want to come out of that life. They may only want to be in Philly. Like, I know Philly. This is what I love. I don't want to do any of that other stuff. And it is a divide that sort of comes across between Trey and Will in this, in the way that everything sort of wraps up for them. So Hillary is packing, getting ready to move into the influencer house with the help of her dad, and she's throwing a party. And her dad is like, hey, I know you're throwing a party, and you are trying to figure out how to do it. She asked your mom. I think your mom has some pretty good ideas and can kind of pull this off. And she's like, mom throws these bougie parties. I want something a little different. And Dad's like, you should trust her. She only wants what's best for you. And that interaction that we've had many times with Hillary and Aunt Viv just have not clicked. He's doing his best to sort of make sure that they mend that before she goes out of the house. And she does sort of help. And there's a party that is thrown. All the influencers that are in that house, the main guy, there's about 4 or 5. There's a prank team called the Black Ass. I forgot the Black Ass something or another. They all kind of come into the house. And they have a party. Also, Trey and Will are invited down as well. That's from the first sort of nugget of Trey not being a part of what Will is doing. Because Will's like, yo, let's dress up. We got to go down there and it's going to be black. No, I'm not doing that. It is already a bucking of the system. They go down and it goes off without a hitch. Trey is drinking, though. He's drinking pretty heavy. He's on that sauce pretty well. And he lets off to Carlton the one thing that Carlton probably just didn't need. He becomes a dog on a bone. That he informs Carlton of why Will is actually there and about the gun charge and how he was in prison and Uncle Phil wiped all that away and got him out here. Ah, shit. We know where that's headed because now Carlton has one up on Will and he's going to use it till he can't use it anymore. And that's sort of what happens. In this party, certain things splinter off. Aunt Viv has a moment with one of the influencers who's like, hey, yo, you could be doing this influencing shit. Like, you could be a part of this. Like, you travel around the world. You are a person who's seen parts of the world that others have not seen. You should be a part of this. And she's like, I'm not an influencer. And she sort of, as the night goes along, gets her to understand that this is like theater. Like, this is an art. She's like, oh. And I think if she thinks of it in that way, it sort of allows her both, A, to sort of possibly go down that road, but also connect a little bit more to Hillary and understanding that this influencing stuff is a lot like her stuff with art. It's just a different form of it. Ding, 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 ding. I was right. Ashley has a moment with one of the sex positive influencers there and starts to sort of question gender and sexual orientation in the middle, the many ways of how people can go from heterosexual to homosexual to asexual in different chapters of their life. It's just Ashley trying to get information. She's a 12-year-old girl who just doesn't understand yet what she feels and how she feels, and if what she feels is normal. She does come later to talk to Hillary. You have a big sister, little sister moment, which is a good thing because I feel like this show needs more of those familiar moments to sort of remember and remind us of the old school series. But they have a moment, and I love the way that Hillary responds to Ash because Ash is saying that she has a crush on someone, and she doesn't know if that person. She's using non-gender specific pronouns for a bit. It's like I wonder if that person will feel the same way about me. I don't know. And Hillary's like, well, what's her name? Or no, Hillary asks, what's their name? And she says it's Luciana, which is the girl that I said that. I mean, she lit up in her room, so it's kind of obvious. I've been that kid. And her response is like, well, all right. Well, is she like what she like? Like not missing a beat, just not judging or thinking anything about it. And you can tell that the relationship they have is very great. And Ashley sort of asks like, hey. Were you surprised? It's like, no. I'm surprised that you have a crush because you busy. Like, you about this life. You doing all your health stuff. But you being in love with someone or in crush or feeling for somebody, no. That's a surprise. Who it is or what or whom you want isn't. She's like, I didn't. It's cool that you like girls. And Ashley kind of responds back like, I don't know. I like girls. I like boys. She's kind of just fluid, which is why that conversation that she had earlier was so interesting. Uncle Phil and the lead of the influencer house have a combo off to the side and kind of just like, hey, I know you probably wanted your daughter to be a lawyer and all of this. And he goes into a pretty emotional concept about how Hillary was a preemie and all of this, which we find out later that was recorded because Hillary has these small little tapes that are all over the place that are streaming live that sort of build up the buzz for all of this. And it does wonders for his campaign. There's something that does not do, as we'll get to in a little bit later. And then the jackass, the black ass or the jackass boys do a prank where they got it's not even funny. It's kind of just like, what? That's the prank? It's probably of the things that happen in that sequence is the worst thing because it's a button that just doesn't work. Like you put a dancing popping bear in a dinner plate and you come out butt naked. Like none of that really correlates to me. Like, oh, you've been pranked. But I also am not a prank. I don't like those prank shows, so it's kind of one of those like I don't think it's a good prank, and I don't like that kind of stuff. So it's a twofold for me. As we separate from that scene, though, Carlton confronts Uncle Phil about all of this, and it's like, hey, yo, you lied to me, and it comes up once again very unlikable. For him to be a family member of his cousin, now granted, I know he's gone through his own things, but for him to be a family member of his cousin and kind of just be like, well, why would you do that? Like, you lied to me. He's more concerned about how it affects him and what he gets out of it and how he is not treated in the same love or given those same second chances or grace. And that's what Uncle Phil is saying. Like, everyone should be given a level of grace. You were giving it during anxiety. He fights back. Like, you're comparing what I had to this? And there's just he's just not listening. He's just not hearing it. And then he goes to confront Will and essentially blackmails Will. Will is still trying to keep up the lie, but he essentially blackmails Will and says, "Hey, cool. I'll keep your secret. You stay away from Lisa. You don't become the big man on campus, at school. You don't all of this stuff. You stand down because I know I got you." And Will's like, "Okay, cool." Because as we learn in this, Will is very much liking this world. He still is a Philly kid, but he's liking the advantages and the things that he can get and do here that he just wasn't able to do in the 14 square miles, the 14 blocks, I believe, that he had in Philly. That his mom says, like, you should try to do for more. So the next day, Uncle Phil has gotten the boys, Trey, and actually all three of them, Trey, Carlton, and Will, tickets to go see D Smoke at the Staples Center in LA, which at the time of recording that, it was Staples Center, is now some stuff that I won't talk about. But it's not the Staples Center anymore. But they go there, but Carlton does not want to go. Carlton at the last minute is like, nah, I'm not going to go, because he's starting to put his blackmail thing into effect. He's got Lisa coming over, and he's going to work on a foundation for her mom's, like a party fundraiser for her mom's memory. As a kind of a needling thing to Will. Lisa shows up, and Will is very cold to her. She notices it, but Carlton's like, it's no big deal. Carlton's still trying to kind of make his Mac do his move. And as it goes along, they have a moment where he's like, yeah, you want to do Mardi Gras? I'm going to set the best party for you. He tried to make his move, try to kiss on her. She's like, no. My feelings are still the same for you. I'm still not rocking with you. Honestly, and she doesn't, the subtext is she doesn't go into it. I want to bone your cousin, but your cousin ain't rocking me right now, and I don't know why. But I feel like this already unlikable, that type of sequence is going to set Carlton back down that line where we thought we were going up in the last episode with the canvas when he's starting to kind of come around. Those lines of Xanax are about to start coming back up. He's going to be sniffing and being that sad guy in those first 3 episodes, sitting in the corner like, well, I guess I'll do Xanax again. The boys head to the D Smoke concert. They are introduced to D Smoke. Trey's beside himself for the first time in the world. He can't say words. He goes, "Oh my God, you D Smoke." Keep saying it. Uncle Phil has to go handle some business. He gets pulled to the side for a moment as Lisa's dad and a high official, I believe it might be the chief of police, come and start asking some questions and saying, "Hey, your campaign's going good, but you might want to make some concessions and might want to change some things because we can make it go bad for you." And he's like, "I'm up in the polls, so I don't know what you're talking about. So I got this." And the defund the police thing is starting to rub the police, as we knew it was going to, the wrong way. And Uncle Phil, matter of fact, is like, "I'm not saying remove everything. I'm saying you clearly know that there are things within your organization as a police officer that we can cut some of that funding and put that elsewhere." And they're like, "No, we're not having it." And Uncle Phil just blows them off, like, "Whatever, kick rocks. I'm not playing with you." While that's happening, the concert is starting, and Will and Trey have a pretty much a monumental blow up because it is sort of revealed in that moment that Will is actively thinking about staying in LA, staying in Bel-Air. And Trey had just been assuming, like, "Oh, you're going to come back to the team. The team's been losing games. You're going to come back to the team." His mom has been assuming, even though he hasn't gotten that part yet. He'll get there in a bit. But everyone is assuming that they've made the decision for him and that he's going to go back to Philly. And he's like, no, wait, I haven't made up my mind yet. When he sort of has, he just hasn't said it out loud yet. And they have a big fight, like to the point where they stop speaking. They don't speak at the concert anymore. There's this nosy ass woman. Now, granted, they are in close quarters, but there's this nosy ass woman to the side that just keeps looking at him like, "Why are these Negroes all up in this box being so angry?" I'm like, "Woman, you at a hip hop concert. Calm your ass down. There's gonna be some volatile stuff happening at this concert." Will then goes back to Aunt Viv and kind of lets him know, like, "Hey, yo, Trey needs to go back home. They get into blows. They go into a fight. They really go at it, and it's basically challenging. Trey is challenging his realness, his streetness, and Will is kind of just like, there's something better for us or for me, and I'm taking it." And you gotta understand that Trey is coming from somebody who was still in the danger zone of all of this. Like, he was shot. He feels some of this was Will's blame as far as even going to that ballpark, and Will feels some of it's his blame for even bringing a gun to that. They both have some resentment for each other, and that starts to blow up more when this impetus of, "I want you back in Philly, I want to stay here," nah, and they butt heads. So Will goes soft on Viv and is like, yeah, he wants to roll. And Viv at that point says, like, this is at that fork in the road. People sometimes go on different paths. That night at the basketball court, that's when the two of you went on different paths. And he may have been your day one. He may come back around as life goes on, but for right now, the two of you have separated. And Will sees them off. And there's a moment when, there's more to life than Philly. My man basically says, not for me. Like, he's a guy, and I've had those people. I'm from Detroit. There are people like, I want to come to LA. I want to do this, and then they were like, no, Detroit is where I'm at. Doesn't mean it's small-minded. It's just that's the way. That is what is meant for them, and the path for Will is slightly different. Based on the combo that he's had, and based on the thing that he actually has to verbalize it and say it out loud, Will calls his mom and FaceTimes her, and she's excited to see her boy. She's like, yo, the scouts are ready to come see you. We ready to bring you back to Philly? And he's like, yeah, mom, I'm not coming back. You can see it break her. It crushes her. And it breaks him, too. Like, he's sad by it. But he does see a better life for himself there in LA. And that's how the episode ends on a pretty sour note with him taking ownership of who his life is. Because here's what's always crazy. He was thrust into Bel-Air and didn't really get to make a choice for himself. Now that things have sort of cleared out, Rashad's gone, he doesn't have that need to be there. He now can kind of sit amongst it and make a decision for himself. And this was the first decision that he's got to make for himself. And it is heartbreaking to do, but it is probably the best thing for him to do. There's one other sequence that happens in this episode that is just funny to me. There is the art dealer that comes to play. His name is Reed Broderick, I believe, played by green-eyed Michael Ealy, who is whispering sweet art nothings into Aunt Viv's ear, like to the point where, yeah, somebody gonna make a move on somebody, and somebody's drawers will be somewhere, and Uncle Phil's gonna find out, and then Jeffrey gonna have to handle his business because it's gonna get grinded. The way that, not granted, Mike just has smoldering eyes no matter what, but the way that he's pushing up on Aunt Viv, I was like, oh yeah, this gonna turn left real fast. But he has given her a blank space, a spot, which those are expensive. At an art gallery, he's got given her a spot. It's like, oh, that's for you. Go do your art and bring me something because you got magic. And he's like, yeah, you got magic, but I also wanna make some magic. Like, that's what he's really getting at. That's the episode. Another solid episode. It's starting to find its groove. It is definitely an emotional episode, but it's also a fun episode. You get the highs and the lows. It's a good meal, if you will. We have still made Carlton completely unlikable. And if we ever get to a point where we're trying to make this family a unit, it is going to be very difficult for the writers to get from underneath all of this bad will that you've given that character. I know people have been going after the actor, and he's been tweeting. I think if you can make the audience as a whole actively not like you, you're doing your job. You're doing what the writers have asked of you. So kudos to you. I just still don't particularly care for this version of Carlton. But everybody else is, I think, firing on all cylinders. We don't get any Jeffrey here. I don't know if he's cleaning up bodies or whatnot, what that man is doing, but in this episode, he is not around, nor Jazz. But those are my thoughts on this particular episode, PA to LA. What did you guys think about this one? Go ahead and leave your thoughts and comments in the comments below. If you haven't already, you can follow us on Twitter at HollywoodADI, or you can hit us up on email at HollywoodAlreadyDid@gmail.com. We also have a podcast with the same name that's on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, any other place podcasts. We're there. We currently have the episode about Uncharted up with our reboots and sequels, and then we have our spinoff series called You Can't Do That Anymore, where we talk about the very interesting film Caligula. But like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.